You thought you were in control, didn't you? That your thoughts were yours, your choices were yours, that the voice in your head was your own. But what if I told you that much of what you call you is simply a mask, a carefully constructed illusion, woven from childhood fears, inherited patterns, and the weight of generations long gone? Carl Jung didn't speak to your ego. He spoke to the part of you that trembles quietly when no one is watching. The part that doesn't post, doesn't smile, just aches, silently. This video isn't comfort, it's confrontation. And if you're brave enough to stay, to sit in the truth without flinching, then something inside you will start to stir, not louder, quieter, but deeper than you've ever dared to go. Because the reason you're not free isn't because of your job, or your partner, or your past. It's because something within you, something ancient and unexamined, still holds the reins, and you don't even know its name. So stay, even if it hurts, especially if it hurts. Because the only thing more painful than facing yourself is spending your entire life avoiding what would have finally set you free. Take a breath, and let's begin. There's a haunting moment in every life where we pause, not because of exhaustion, but because something deeper whispers, what if none of this was truly you? Not the career, not the desires you chase, not the opinions you fight for, not even the voice in your head that says, this is who I am. What if that voice was never yours to begin with? Carl Jung did not tiptoe around such realizations. He walked straight into them, into the storm of the psyche, into the chaos behind the mask, and found something most people never dare to face. You are not the author of most of your choices. You've been following a script written long before you were conscious enough to question it. Patterns of belief passed down like genetic code. Traumas that lived in the air you breathed as a child. Fears that weren't yours, but became yours, because no one taught you how to refuse them. The thoughts you defend, the desires that pull at you in the dark, the shame that tightens around your throat when you speak your truth. They are echoes. Echoes from the unconscious, from the shadow, from the forgotten myth of who you had to be in order to survive. And yet, you believed it was your identity. You called it me. You made plans around it. You suffered for it. But what if the suffering came from defending something that was never yours in the first place? Jung wrote, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. What you call free will maybe a series of inherited compulsions, reactive choices made to please, avoid, or prove. And the truth is, this isn't your fault. You weren't taught to ask, whose voice is this? Whose dream am I living? Whose fears am I avoiding? You were taught to obey, achieve, belong. But belonging cost you something. The silence of your soul. So now, when things fall apart, when you feel the numb ache of disconnection, it's not because you failed. It's because your inner world is revolting against the illusion. The soul does not shout, but it will not be silenced forever. It begins with discomfort, a strange pull toward questions you can't explain, a restlessness that cannot be solved by success or affection. A moment, like this one, where you finally pause and ask, if this isn't me, then who is? And that question, terrifying and beautiful, is the threshold. Because on the other side of who you thought you were, is the one you were always meant to become. You see, once you start questioning who you really are, you can't go back. Because the question itself becomes a crack in the surface, and through that crack, light begins to pour in, but also shadow. And this is where Carl Jung stands, not as a distant academic, but as a map maker of the soul. He didn't sit comfortably in a university tower, curing symptoms, and he went where few dared to go. Into the darkness, into the chaos, into the power. He looked not just at trauma, but at myth. Not just at memory, but at meaning. He understood that the mind is not a machine to be fixed, but a LA forest of forgotten symbols. A living, breathing ecosystem of opposites. Light and dark, masculine and feminine, order and instinct, spirit and shadow. And while Freud stopped at the surface, Jung dove into the waters underneath. He saw what others didn't dare name. That within us lives something far older than our personal story. He called it the self, not the ego, not your identity, but the deepest center of your being. The unchanging whole version of you that waits patiently beneath the noise, beneath the pain, beneath the performances. This is the part of you that doesn't need validation, because it was never broken. It simply got buried beneath years of trying to be enough. Jung wasn't interested in helping you function. He was interested in helping you remember. Because the true illness of modern life is not anxiety or depression or addiction. Those are symptoms. The true illness is disconnection from the soul. And that's why he didn't offer band-aids. He offered initiation, a descent, a sacred encounter with the forgotten self. He showed us that your nightmares are not random, that your dreams are not noise, that your repeated pain is not fate, but a message. And here's the wild truth. You are not the first to feel this. The story of your suffering is ancient, because you are not alone in your mind. There are forces within you, old, collective, powerful, that shape how you feel, how you love, how you break, how you heal. You don't just carry your story. You carry the story of humanity. And Jung gave us the language to read it. Let's walk deeper. And once you begin to sense the ancient forces shaping your story, you inevitably stumble upon the most unsettling truth of all. That inside you, hidden, silent, patient, lives a part of yourself you've spent your whole life denying. The shadow. It's not a monster, not a curse, not some external darkness out to get you. It is you. It is every piece of your being you were taught not to love. The shame you swallowed in silence. The rage you were told to hide. The grief that had no permission to speak. The envy that curled up behind your smile. The desires that burned beneath the mask of politeness. You buried them. To be accepted. To be safe. To survive. But here's the price. What you refuse to look at doesn't vanish. It waits. And while it waits, it guides you in secret. It becomes the voice that sabotages your joy, the compulsion that chooses pain, the story that says you're not enough, just when love tries to get close. Jung called this the shadow, not as an enemy, but as a vital teacher. Because the parts of you that were rejected are not evil. They are exiled. And when the shadow is ignored, it doesn't disappear. It takes control. That's why you explode over small things, why you repeat the same relationships, why you fear success, fear love, fear freedom. It's not because you're broken. It's because your shadow is still driving, and you haven't taken back the wheel. And here's the paradox that Jung understood so well. The more you believe you are purely good, the more dangerous your shadow becomes. Because when you refuse to see your own darkness, you begin projecting it onto the world. You judge others for the very things you secretly fear in yourself. You see danger where there is simply truth. You call people toxic when really, they just reflect a part of you you're not ready to meet. So how do we reclaim our wholeness? Not by killing the shadow, not by conquering it, but by turning toward it, with honesty, with courage, with love. To face your shadow is to become real, to admit that you are not just light, but flame, not just calm, but storm. And from this inner reconciliation comes something miraculous, peace. Not the peace of avoidance, but the peace of truth. Because when you stop running, you stop bleeding. And only then can you begin to live a life that is truly yours. Come closer. There's more to uncover. There comes a moment, quiet, disorienting, sacred, when you begin to suspect perhaps fate isn't something that happens to you, but something that has always moved through you, like a current below the surface. And in that stillness, a sentence whispers from the deep. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Carl Jung did not say this to frighten you. He said it to free you. Because you are not meant to be a puppet of patterns, a slave to emotional echoes. You are meant to become conscious, to awaken to the truth that has lived inside you long before you had the words to name it. Your suffering was not your enemy. Your reactivity was not your failure. They were signals, messages, calling you home to the parts you left behind. See, the shadow is not the villain. It's the container of every emotion you disowned. Your anger that was really a cry for protection, your jealousy that hid unacknowledged longing, your pride that masked the wound of being unseen. You were taught to suppress them, to smile over them, to move on. But the psyche is not a machine. It's a living system. And what you exile, it stores. Not to punish you, but to preserve you. To wait until you are ready to integrate what was too much when you were too young. And now, you are ready. Healing doesn't come by bypassing your emotions. It arrives when you sit beside them without flinching, when you look your shadow in the eye and say, I see you, and I will no longer abandon you. This is the alchemy of transformation, not denial. Integration. And the energy that once sabotaged you, it becomes your fuel. That same rage can become your boundary. That same shame can become your empathy. That same fear can become your clarity. The shadow was never trying to destroy you. It was trying to protect the most tender, most vital part of you, your soul. But it could only do so with the tools of the unconscious, which means it screamed when it wanted to be heard. It sabotaged when it wanted to slow you down. It repeated, not to punish you, but to help you remember where it all began. When you stop fighting this part of yourself, you stop fragmenting. You begin to reclaim pieces of your being you didn't even know you had lost. You stop calling it chaos and begin to see it as a map. Because the shadow doesn't just carry your wounds, it carries your genius, your fire, your purpose. But only when you stop running from it and finally welcome it in. Breathe. You're beginning to remember. There comes a stage in the soul's journey where healing no longer means getting better. It means becoming whole, not polished, not perfect, but true. This is not the path of surface-level self-improvement, not the glossy idea of becoming your best self. This is something far more sacred, far more terrifying. It is the path Jung called individuation, the process of becoming who you truly are, beneath every mask you had to wear to survive. And let me tell you this now, you will not be the same after this, because this is not an upgrade. It is a death, the death of who you thought you were, the death of the persona you used to please, to impress, to belong. At first, it feels like falling apart. Everything you clung to for identity, your roles, your beliefs, your defenses, begins to dissolve. And yet, within the disintegration, something stirs. A voice, not new, but ancient. A part of you that was always there, waiting beneath the noise. You begin to face the contradictions within yourself. You realize that you are both light and shadow, both the healer and the wounded, both the seeker and the lost. And you no longer try to choose between them. You begin, slowly, to hold them both. This is not a clean process. It is raw, unforgiving, messy. There are nights when it feels like nothing makes sense. Like everything you once built your identity on has been stripped away. And in that void, panic comes. But stay. Please stay. Because this is what transformation feels like from the inside. Not a breakthrough, but a breakdown. Jung said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." And the price of that privilege? Your illusions. You will need to shed the image of who you were told to be. You will need to question what you thought was success. You will need to disappoint those who benefited from your inauthenticity. But in return, you gain something unshakable. You gain the ability to live in alignment with your soul. To speak, not to be liked, but to be true. To love without collapsing. To be alone without being empty. To suffer without losing meaning. Individuation is not a destination. It is a continuous unfolding, a daily, humble re-choosing of what is real over what is easy, of what is sacred over what is popular. And no, this path is not for everyone. But if something inside you knows there is more, if you feel called to stop performing and start living from the core, then this journey is for you. Not to fix yourself, but to find yourself. Not to become someone better, but to remember someone forgotten. This is how wholeness is born. In the fire, in the dark, in the stillness that comes when you no longer fear who you really are. Every night, while the world sleeps and the body rests, your soul speaks. But it doesn't speak in words. It speaks in symbols, in metaphors, in strange images that seem to make no sense to the waking mind. And yet, feel hauntingly familiar. A staircase that never ends, a snake that slithers through your childhood home, a mirror that won't reflect your face, a house with locked doors, rooms you've never seen. These are not just dreams, they are messages, not random, not meaningless. Jung knew this. To him, dreams were not leftovers of the day's confusion. They were letters from the unconscious, sent straight to the doorstep of your awareness. But the problem is, most people never open them. You scroll past them in the morning. You laugh at them. You call them weird. But your psyche doesn't speak in logic. It speaks in symbolism. It speaks in the ancient language of the soul. The snake in your dream isn't just a snake. It may be transformation or betrayal. It may be sexual energy or the shedding of an identity. The house is not just a house. It may represent the self and the condition of that house, that broken door, that dark attic, that flooded basement, all reflect aspects of your inner world. Mirrors in dreams are invitations to confront the shadow, to see what you've refused to see. Water often speaks of emotion. Flying may point to liberation. Falling, a collapse of ego or the fear of losing control. And the most mysterious part is this: these symbols don't come from you, they come through you. Because deep inside, beneath your individual experience, you carry the collective. You carry myths older than memory. You carry the archetypes of humanity. That's why people across time and culture dream the same symbols, the same gods, the same monsters, the same journeys through darkness into light. The soul knows. And when the ego strays too far from your essence, The unconscious sends a dream like a rescue flare in the night. But what happens when we ignore it? We lose the map. We lose the compass. We become strangers to ourselves. You wonder why you feel stuck, disconnected, flat. You wonder why your life keeps looping the same storylines. It's because your soul is trying to speak and you stopped listening. So tonight, when the world quiets again, listen. Not with your ears, but with your intuition. Write your dreams down. Hold them in your heart. Ask what they are trying to show you. Don't rush to interpret. Just sit with the symbol. Feel it. Because dreams don't lie. They don't flatter. They don't care about your persona. They care about your truth. And if you dare to listen, to really listen, you may hear the one voice that has always been there. Your own soul, whispering the way back home. Have you ever felt like you were playing a role in a story you never wrote, as if your choices, your feelings, your conflicts were not entirely yours? That's not your imagination. That's the work of the archetypes. Carl Jung called them the ancient architects of the psyche. Invisible patterns older than language, older than culture, older even than you. They are not concepts you learn. They are structures you inherit. You were born with them. You carry them. And often, they carry you. The hero archetype pushes you to prove your worth, to strive, to win, to overcome, even if it means destroying yourself in the process. The shadow, always lurking, is the part of you you refuse to see. It comes out in judgment, in blame, in shame. It walks behind your ego like a second skin. The anima and animus whisper through your relationships, the feminine in the man, the masculine in the woman. They seduce, frustrate, awaken. They bring you to your knees or lift you into ecstasy. They are not just lovers. They are mirrors of your unlived potential. The child archetype seeks safety, craves love, fears abandonment. It lives in your need to be understood, to be held, to be told you are enough. And then there is the wise old man, the inner guide. He appears in your dreams as a teacher, a wizard, a stranger with knowing eyes. He carries ancient truth, but only offers it when you're ready to receive. These archetypes aren't myths. They are alive. Not out there in books or legends, but in here. In your instincts, your patterns, your very desires. And here's the truth most people miss. You don't choose which archetype drives your life. If you are unconscious, the archetype chooses you. You think you're falling in love, but maybe the lover archetype is seeking union through you. You think you're rescuing someone, but maybe the hero is acting out his fantasy again. And you'll burn out trying to save people who don't want to be saved. You think you're rebelling against your parents, but perhaps it's the rebel archetype desperately seeking to break the illusion of control. And yet, these forces are not enemies. They are sacred, but they must be seen to be honored. Because when unconscious, they possess you. But when conscious, they empower you. Recognizing the archetype that moves through you is like naming a ghost. Suddenly, it loses its grip. Suddenly, you're no longer a puppet. You're the puppeteer. So ask yourself, who's speaking through me right now? Is it the wounded child, the angry warrior, the abandoned lover, the wise elder? And then, listen, with honesty, with humility. Because you are not just you. You are a constellation of ancient stories waiting to be rewritten. And the moment you recognize the pattern, you reclaim the pen. That's when the real transformation begins. We live in a time where everything is louder, and yet somehow you feel more alone than ever. You have a phone that talks to you, a calendar that tells you who to be, apps that track your every step, friends you never meet, followers who don't know your name. And still, in the middle of all this connection, there's a silence that haunts you. You wake up tired. You scroll without meaning. You smile without feeling. You go to sleep wondering if this is all there is. Carl Jung saw this coming. Long before hashtags and high-speed internet, he predicted the collapse of inner meaning. He warned us that in a world obsessed with image, the soul would suffocate. And now, here we are. Modern life gave us speed, but stole our stillness. It gave us efficiency, but drained our essence. It gave us identities, but no self. You perform for approval, filter your joy, numb your anxiety with productivity. But deep down, a voice keeps whispering, "This is not who you are." Jung called it a crisis of individuation. When the persona, the mask you wear for the world, grows so thick, so polished, that you forget there's a person underneath. You begin to feel like an actor in someone else's play, delivering lines you didn't write, laughing at jokes that no longer land, clapping for successes that feel empty. And the soul, it doesn't scream, it doesn't beg, it waits, silently, patiently, until you remember. This is why anxiety is rising, why depression feels epidemic, why even those who have it all are quietly falling apart. Because the soul cannot be fed with likes. It cannot be nourished by praise. It does not care if you're admired. It wants to be real. Jung didn't offer easy solutions. He didn't promise that one day it will all make sense. He told the truth, that you must walk into the chaos to find your own center. That healing isn't comfort, it's confrontation. That the way back isn't forward, it's inward. He didn't teach you how to escape life. He taught you how to descend into it. Because freedom is not on the other side of success. It's found in the quiet place where you finally meet yourself. And maybe that's what you're feeling now. That quiet ache, that sacred discontent. It's not a breakdown. It's a signal. It's the soul knocking at your door, not to punish you, but to bring you home. So stop. Not everything can be fixed by doing more. Sometimes the most radical act is to listen. And in the next moment, in the next breath, we'll explore why your pain is not a mistake, but a sacred invitation back to wholeness. What if your pain isn't here to break you, but to wake you? What if your sadness, your confusion, your restlessness aren't signs of failure, but signs that your soul is stirring? You see, true awakening does not come with fanfare. It doesn't come from books or gurus or the next self-help video. It comes in the quiet collapse of illusions, when you no longer believe the lies you told yourself to survive. When the masks begin to feel too heavy. When you look in the mirror and ask, who am I, really? Carl Jung knew that the greatest revolutions don't begin in society. They begin within. He said, you are not hounded by your demons. You are haunted by your unlived life. And maybe that's exactly what you've been feeling. A quiet rebellion from your soul. A soft ache that says, this can't be it. There's more to me than this. You are not broken. You are fragmented. Pieces of you were hidden to be accepted. Pieces were rejected to be loved. You traded parts of your truth for belonging, survival, approval. But the soul doesn't forget. It waits for you to remember, to come back, to gather your pieces. And the paradox is this: you only become whole by first facing everything you tried not to feel. The shadow, the shame, the envy, the fear, the wounded child still hiding behind your smile. They are not here to destroy you. They are here to return you to yourself. And when you stop running, when you stop trying to fix what was never truly broken, something beautiful happens. You become quiet. Not numb, not apathetic, but present. You no longer need to defend your worth. You no longer chase love like it's oxygen. You no longer live like a performance. You start living like a soul. This is not about becoming someone better. It's about becoming someone real. And this is what Jung called freedom. Not the absence of suffering, but the presence of wholeness. A state where you are no longer enslaved by unconscious fears, inherited beliefs, and compulsive roles. A life where you can say, I know who I am. I carry both light and darkness. And I'm no longer afraid of myself. That is the real awakening. Not a thunderstorm, but a gentle remembering. Not a victory, but a homecoming. So if you're here, watching this, feeling something stir deep inside, know this: you're not lost, you're arriving. And in the final step of this journey, we'll uncover what it truly means to live from that awakened state, to embody what Jung called the individuated self, not just in theory, but in the sacred rhythm of your everyday life. In this modern world of chaos and noise, perhaps the greatest irony is this: we have more information than ever before, yet we've never been more disconnected from ourselves. We know so much, yet understand so little about who we truly are. We chase success, recognition, and validation, but find ourselves drowning in a quiet, aching emptiness we cannot name. And this is exactly why Carl Jung's work is more essential now than ever. He didn't offer magic formulas or teach you how to become someone else. Jung didn't teach you how to improve your image. He taught you how to return home, back to yourself. Not the persona you perform, not the roles you've played to survive, but your raw, honest, hidden self. The one that existed before the world told you who you should be. In an age obsessed with masks, Jung reminds us, you are not here to be admired. You are here to become whole. And to become whole, you must gather your fragments, even the ones you've rejected. The anger, the jealousy, the shame, the fear, they are not your enemies. They are the keys to your liberation. The deepest truth is this: real freedom is not about controlling your environment. It's about making peace with your inner world. It begins when you stop running from your emotions, when you stop needing others to fill your void, when you stop performing and start living from your soul. Applied to modern life, this means you stop reacting and start observing. When triggered, you no longer rush to blame. You pause and ask, what old wound is this pointing to? You don't fight to be understood, because you've learned to understand yourself. You stop shrinking to fit into rooms that insult your spirit, because you've finally built a home within. You begin to listen to your dreams, not just the ones at night, but the quiet longings that whisper through your days. What makes you feel most alive? What's calling you to step into the unknown? What have you been denying, simply because it doesn't match society's expectations? You realize everything is symbolic, even the people who hurt you. They're not curses, but mirrors. The relationships that repeat themselves, not fate, but unfinished lessons. And every time you turn inward instead of projecting outward, you reclaim a piece of your soul. So stop chasing peace. Start releasing what stands in its way. Stop searching for the light. Begin removing what blocks it, because the light was always inside you. Freedom isn't a destination. It's the natural result of living in truth. And that path, while painful, is the only path truly worth walking. If this message stirred something deep within you, don't let it fade. Subscribe, like, and share this video to support more soul-awakening content. Your presence here matters, and your journey is just beginning. Let's walk it together.